Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Beautiful new week we're beginning. In hopes that any second Mashiach is going to come. So let us give, first of all, start off by giving charity. And when you give, Hashem will react. So you can even test Hashem. So here, go Hashem, bring Mashiach today, stop all the confusion in the world. And it's happening. It's happening. But it could happen a minute sooner. Charity. Also, charity saves from death. Charity brings all good things. So, Mashiach now. Now, let us say a word of praise to the creator of the universe. This is the beginning of the Hallel HaGadol, the big holidays. The Hallel, big praise of God, starts on Psalm 136. It goes like this: Hodu LaHashem ki tov ki lo chazdo. Give praise to God because He is good. Very basic principle in Judaism that God is good. That's what you're supposed to think before you start to pray. God is good. And His kindness is eternal, and His kindness comes to the world. Now let's begin learning. Good morning. Okay, here we go. Let's start off. Here we go. Where is this? Okay. Parshat Mishpatim. Here's the way that this begins. Now, what is interesting? Parshat Mishpatim. The word Mishpatim means laws. These are the laws you should put in front of them. And this week's Torah portion is maybe more, indicative of what the Torah is than any other. Because here we have God is speaking. God creates the whole world. It creates the world constantly, creates you, creates me. And God took the Jews out of Egypt. That's the first of the 10 commandments. And we're supposed to believe only in God, which is, not so difficult. You figure the Jewish people, they just were, God took them out of Egypt. It was impossible task. And personally, God took them all out. And God spoke to all of them at Mount Sinai. All of them heard God, and says their souls jumped out of their bodies. It was an experience that is indescribable, incomparable. You can't compare it to anything else that happened in history or even not in history. It was And what does God say to the Jewish people? If somebody steals your cow, then if he kills it and he steals it and he kills it, then you have to pay, 4 or 5 times the above, and to catch the guy, you have to bring 5. And if you buy a slave, if it's a Jewish slave, the law is like this. If it's a non-Jewish slave, the law is like this. And I have to treat them. I mean, really, that's all God has to say. That's what he took you out for. He took you out of. Imagine if you had a movie, right? There's break out of prison. They have American soldiers are all captured in some place, and some strange person comes along and he frees them all with big explosions and amazing fighting and action. And finally takes them all and he says, listen, the reason I took you out, all of you, is to tell you that when you buy food, when you eat in a restaurant, you should give a tip. That's it. What? That's the whole reason you took us out. Who are you? Doesn't make any difference. That's the reason I took you out. You have to give tips. Don't. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. That's the reason that God took us out of Egypt, so that if somebody steals my cow, he has to pay. There's more laws also. If you buy a slave, you have to do this. All these really strange things in the world. So, of course, God can say, listen, the whole parable that I just gave of somebody breaking somebody out of prison, God said, listen, I create the world. I create you. I create all mankind. I create your blood system and your respiratory system. Not just you. There's 9 billion people in the world. And there's who knows how many animals that are in the world, how many bugs. And I'm creating them all, and I'm providing food for them. And they're all alive. And you understand that? That you don't understand. So therefore, I'm telling you that there's other things you might not understand. And that's what I'm telling you to do. But it's not all not logical. Generally speaking, mishpatim are laws which are understandable. They're for the sake of society, for the sake of a normal life. And there's other laws which are called edut. Those are religious laws. Well, that's a little bit more, religion. Then there's laws that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Those are called chukim, other types of laws. There are laws that make no sense. Don't eat milk and meat. Don't cook milk and meat together. Don't wear shatnez, a garment that has wool and linen in it. And that's what. Oh no, that's bad, right? Don't light a fire on Shabbat. That's only for the Jewish people. Non-Jewish people, they can do all these things, right? Okay, so here we go. Let's go. It says, Elu mishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. These are the laws that you should put before the Jews. Right? God took the Jews out of Egypt, and it says vi with the vav means and. It's like God is saying, I took you out of Egypt, and these are the laws that it's a continuation of what you heard on Mount Sinai. Because on Mount Sinai, the Jewish people only heard directly from God the first two commandments, which was too much for them. They couldn't take it. It was just too much. And they said, okay, we get the point, Moses. We get the point. It's God is speaking to us. God is giving us, you give us the rest. So Moshe spoke the rest of the laws, but they all knew it was coming from God. They knew that Moses was purely God's man. So it says, these are the laws. And not only that, you see what the laws are. There was no logical reason why Moses would make up things like this. And even if more, if he did, there was no logical reason why people would, the next generation would even do them if it didn't come from God. It's, that's Moses again, But you have to do all these little details. Moses had a thing about details. But as soon as you realize that it's God that's creating you, and God has a thing about details, how your nervous system works, and then those details are pretty important. Those details. Here we go. The Elu Mishpatim, and these, and not only did you get the 10 Commandments in Mount Sinai last week, but these are more laws that God said to Moses that you should put before them. Ki tikne eved ivri, when you purchase for yourself a Jewish slave. Now, there's a law of a Jewish slave. What's a Jewish slave? A Jewish slave there's a different laws between for a male and a female. How does it go? According to Judaism, a man that stole money and he couldn't pay it back, and they catch him. So now he can't pay it back. So what's he supposed to do? So instead of putting him in jail, which gives nobody benefits, so they say, okay, you sell yourself as a slave. You can sell yourself to anybody. Sell yourself, and that money you repay the. So you can sell yourself for a certain amount of time, different time. Or there's another way, and that is if a person himself becomes so poor that he doesn't have any money, he can sell himself. He can sell, but only for a certain amount of time. Let's say up to 7 years, you sell yourself. You go free. And the most is up to let's say 49 years. And when the Jubilee comes, all the slaves go free. That's the law, right? And if it's a woman slave, the law's a little bit different. But you have to treat the slaves very well, and you're not allowed to beat them. You have to give them to eat just what you eat. And there are other laws, details, a lot of details. Okay, but these are the laws of the now if of the Jewish slave. Now, if you look at this is a little bit sort of weird. The language, the how do you say the grammar? It says these first. It seems that God is speaking to Moses. These are the laws that you should put in front of them. Them means the Jewish people. Okay, at first glance, this sentence is not necessary. These are the laws you should put in. God is speaking to Moses, and he's telling him to give the laws over to the Jews. So it should just start off that God spoke to Moses. Moshe, when you buy a Jewish, why does it have to say these are the laws you should put before them? All the laws you have to put before them. Why is this sentence? Okay. Next sentence, it says, next question, grammatical problem. It says these are the laws you should put before them, and that's plural. And then it says when you, singular, when you buy a Jewish slave. So here is plural and here's singular. So let's see what's going on. Torah Ohr, we have to understand. Let's make this bigger. 1 minute. Let's make it bigger. 1 minute, excuse me. There we go. Those of you who are just tuning in now, we're learning from a book, a sefer which is called Torah Ohr, from the first Rebbe of Chabad, Parshat Mishpatim. Good, Parshat Mishpatim. Here we go. Which is on page 148. These are the laws that you should put before them when you buy a Jewish slave. Tzorech lahaven, we have to understand. The lifneihem, when it says that these are the laws you should put in front of them, mashma, this implies lashon rabim, plural. And then when it says ki tikneh, this is the laws you should put in front of them. So would you say when they, or when you, plural, ki tikneh? In Hebrew, you could say tiknu. Or even more, you should put in front of them when you buy. It said when they buy. Ki tiknu, it should have said, havalei lameimor, it should have said ki yiknu, when they buy a Jewish slave. Right? These are the laws you should put. Moses tell them these laws, right? When they buy a Jewish slave, this is what they should do. They should, because it's speaking in third person. Ach, but ki tikneh, this who is going to buy the Jewish slave? Who is going to buy the Jewish slave? It's talking about Moses. Okay, the simple meaning is talking about the laws of a Jewish slave. That's a simple meaning. But every letter, every idea in the Torah has four levels, at least four levels of meaning. The simple meaning. Then what's called the homiletic meaning is pshat, that's a simple meaning. Remez, drush, and sod. Let's take the lowest one, that's simple meaning. The deepest, that's sod, that's the secrets, that's Kabbalah. And in the middle, there's two levels of homiletic meanings that there are of Yekudrus. And this is one of them. It says, when it says ki tikneh eved ivri, these are the laws you should put in front of them when you, Moses, God is speaking to Moses, Moses, when you purchase a Jewish slave. And it's talking about, it says before, I know what it says, Elu mishpatim, these are the laws that you should put before them. You should buy yourself a Jewish slave. What's it talking about? Moshe Rabbeinu, olav shalom davka, Moses, he's the one that's going to put these laws inside of them. How lifnei means before them, but it also means inside of them. That's in Hebrew, that's what it means. Lifnei, bifnim means inside of, and lifnei means in front of. How are you going to put all these laws of the Torah inside of them? You have to purchase them as Jewish slaves. Now, in the English, the word is a slave, an eved, but in Hebrew, it's maybe better to say a servant, because slave has a bad interpretation to it. The Jewish servant. On the other hand, servant has like it's not really, how do you say, severe enough. A servant is a person that you can let him go. If you don't pay him, you can quit, whatever. But here it's not. Here you have to buy yourself for a Jewish slave. What does it mean, a slave? You can see it is written. It is written. Okay, so here we're going to understand a little bit about what is Moses. Who is Moses? Who is this person? Was Moses just a great leader? Was he a tremendous, intelligent person? He was like the president of the United States, or he was the king of, somewhere of, King Lion, the Richard, the Lionhearted. Was he the dictator? What exactly was the how do you say, the power of Moses? What's his position? What did he do? What was his special qualities that he had, that he was the leader of the Jewish people? Right. So obviously it wasn't just political. It wasn't just political, because here we're dealing with Moses and God. Moses is dealing with God all the time. The president of the United States doesn't deal with God all the time. Maybe when he reminds the Jewish people, reminds his people, that there's such a thing as God. But his purpose is not to make everybody believe in God, or to connect everybody to God. Everyone should do what God wants. And God does all these miracles for the Jewish people. So we see that Moses is an unusual person. Not only that, we see another thing, that when the Jews finally got out of Egypt and they came to receive the Torah, they couldn't do it. It was too much for them. And Moses did receive the Torah for them. So we see that Moses had a special connection with God, special deep connection with God, that he was able to receive the Torah from God. Now, we learned a couple of weeks ago that the God that Jews believe in is not the same God that everybody else believes in. Everyone else believes in there's a God that creates the world, that created the world a long time ago, and that rules over heaven and hell. After you die, he'll get you. And once in a while, God's, gets involved in the world. Once in a while. But Judaism believes in a God that not only does he deal with the world, but God gives the Torah. And every letter of the Torah that's the essence of God. God is not this natural force or even a spiritual force. God is somehow or other a very deeply, I want to call it a human force. Human force. God made us in his image. God really, really cares what we do. It's very, very important to God, what each and every human being does, and especially what each and every Jew does. That's why God gave the Torah. The Torah is the essence of God. God is not just this amorphous form or energy or being or reality or existence or consciousness or things like that. He's all those things also. There's also that. But don't limit God. God is infinite. He's not limited in any way that you think. God, the essence of God is the Torah. Essence of God is the Torah. And the one that showed everyone this is Moses. And Moses, the job of Moses is to put the Torah inside of everyone, just like God is inside of everybody. God is creating everyone to put it inside. So it should become a natural thing for people to do what it says in the Torah. Not like now. Not like now. Now, maybe naturally people do what it says in their conscience. But naturally, Jews, now what's happening in Israel? Jews are starting to put on tefillin and do it only because they're Jews. They put on tefillin every single day. They put on tzitzis. I saw Jews. I go out in the street. I see. There's people who are totally not religious, and they keep Shabbos. They don't go to synagogue. They don't belong to any group. They're not part of they don't have any rabbi. And they put on tefillin every day. Why? Because they're Jews. There's Jews that keep Shabbos just because they're Jews. Maybe they listen to this rabbi, that rabbi, and then on the WhatsApp or something like that. What is it called? The YouTube. Okay, so here, this is what Moses does. Moses is a person that his thing is connecting the Jews with the essence of God, and the essence of God is the Torah. Essence of God is not just the letters of the Torah, not just the words of the Torah, but the godliness which is in the Torah, the Jewishness which is in the Torah. If you want to call it, God is a super Jew. God is like the essence of what the Jewish people are, and eventually that's going to spread out to the whole entire world. Hine kasiv, it is written, Natati Esa Besarecha Livamtecha. Who is saying these words? These are words from the book of Deuteronomy, and the whole book of Deuteronomy was spoken by Moses. Moses said, if you do my commandments, I will give the rains in their time. I will give the fodder in the fields for your animals, etc. This is referring to Moses. Moses is talking about he's the one that's saying, I am going to give food, grasses, and fodder for your animals. Moses is going to give food for the animals. What does that mean? And it says like this: Zerati at Beit Yisrael, I have planted the Jewish people. Zera Adam v'Zera Be'ema. There are some Jews which are called animals, and those are the Jews that Moses feeds. Who are the Jews that are called animals? You'll see. You'll be surprised. Sheyesh Beis Madrigas. There are two types of Jews. One is Jews which are called Hagavot. They are very, very high, like big tzaddikim, and they're a tremendous level. They're called Zera Adam. They are called the seed of man, which were drawn down from this level of Adam Elyon, from the man which is on the throne, in the vision of Ezekiel. And this is talking about the man sitting on the throne that Ezekiel saw. This is the level of Atzilut. The Katir Nasa Adam et Salmeno. That's when God created man. He said, let us make man in our image. Those are called the souls of Atzilut. Now, we've learned in previous classes what these what the world of Atzilut means. There's 4 dimensions of godliness, of reality. The most real dimension of reality where you can feel God, that's called the world of Atzilut. It's pure godliness. There's no world. There's no space, there's no time, there's no physical, there's no spiritual. It's above the spiritual. The world of Bria, that's spiritual. That's where the angels are and the souls are. And Atzilut is like pure godliness. And there are souls that come from Atzilut. There are souls which are there. These are called sons of God. Those souls are called the sons of God. Really, everything in the world comes from the essence of God, right? It comes to this, but the question is, how is it strained down to us? Something like on Mount Sinai, the Jews, God spoke directly, but the people couldn't take it, so it had to come through Moses. And then afterwards, it says that the people couldn't understand that, so it came afterwards through Joshua and then the elders, and then which is not the case. The souls of Bria and Yetzirah, those are normal. Those are called servants. Those are called servants. That's the banim ki avanim. That's the two Avinu Malkeinu. When we say to God that you are our father, you are our king. So the father, that's the essence of the Jewish soul. And avadim, our king, that's the lowest aspect of the Jewish soul. But that's 99.99999% Jews. Those are the animals. Hainu, just like the difference between a man, a human being, that he has awareness of God. Kach elu and neshamos, also these souls, the tzaddikim, they have a big awareness of what God really is. What is real reality? Upirish dat, what does it mean that they have awareness? Dat means a connection. Doesn't mean yediyah bilavad. It doesn't mean intellectual understanding. Dat, I know. Like it says, the man knew his wife. It wasn't talking about intellectual. It's to feel God. They really feel God, just like we feel that we exist, right? Every human being feels and is certain that he exists himself, he, she, right? Everyone knows they exist. Well, tzaddikim know the same way that God exists, but infinitely more, because God is more real than we are. God is creating us. And they feel the reality of God. They feel it. It's an obvious thing to them, that the whole world is a big miracle and it's a big gift. They feel this. They just think about it. Those are what's called the seed of man. The bait, the other type of Jews, those are called Zerubbabel. That's called the seed of animal. Neshamas, those are the normal souls, the Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, even some very high souls. That's almost all of the souls in our generation. Ki Neshamas, the souls that are at Tzilut, these are what's called Bnei Aliyah. These are the high level of Jews, which are very, very few. Even in the beginning generations, there were very few. Even in the time of the Talmud, it says there were very few. She'em and Hashemas, these are the souls. She'en lem dat kolkach. That's us. We haven't got so much of a clear connection, feeling of what God is. It doesn't mean to say that they haven't got any intellect. They haven't got any intelligence in what God is. We're talking about most of the people in our generation. These are people who could stand and talk, give lectures on God and really feel it and really be genuine. But in fact, they feel themselves. That's a normal person. They have intellect and they have awareness of God and understanding. They can understand the greatness of God and etc. from books and from authors. They can even write books about the greatness of God. And they can do Torah, they can do commandments, and they can believe in God. A sag of Havana, they have understanding how it is that God enlivens everything, how, all the things we're talking about. How it is that God is infinite and how you can not possibly understand God. Now we can learn these ideas, we can understand them, but still we remain animals. It's not that we feel God. What we feel is ourselves, like an animal. What's the big difference between an animal and a person? An animal only feels itself. You can teach an animal to be trained. They have these stories, Lassie come home or whatever, that the dog loves its master and is willing to go through fire and water and everything in order to save the boy that falls into the pit or something like that, right? And you see that animals can demonstrate certain traits, human traits that they are, but that's only because they learn to do so. That's because they learn to do so. It's not the same as a human being. Animals essentially are selfish. You can train animals, like train war horses to go into fire and to go into danger and things like that. You can train them, but generally speaking, animals only do what is their nature. That's their nature. You can train a horse to do because that's their nature. They can be trained to do these things. But a human being can go against his nature. A human being go against his nature. You can have people that are naturally thieves or liars or cheaters or whatever, and they can change their nature to be honest, even though it's to their disbenefit. Right? That's the Jewish people. And through the generations, it was not to anybody, any Jew's advantage to say that they're Jews. In the face of the non-Jews, to say you were Jewish was always dangerous. Only very, very recently, right, in the time of the Maskilim, the Maskilim, maybe from what is his name, from Mendelssohn and those people on, they wanted to be like the non-Jews. They wanted to be as much like them as possible, and the Zionists, they were the first ones to say, listen, let's change Jewish identity. We'll change that. The problem, we're saying we're not Jews. We are. What changes, what Jews will be like a nationality. There won't be any connection to God. They were the first ones to do something like that. But before them, Jews did not deny that they're Jews. Listen, most of the Zionists also didn't deny that they're Jews. That's the fact. They didn't. They wanted the land of Israel, and they fought for the land. There was something inside of them that was Jewish. They knew it was Jewish was important. But nevertheless, the essence of Judaism is self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice, that you're willing to say that you're a Jew, even though it's to your disbenefit, even though you don't even believe it, right? You don't even believe it. But when it comes right down to it, are you willing to admit that you're not a Jew? Say, I'm not. No, I'm not. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokim. There are Jews that, of course, they said, whatever, I'll say whatever you want to. Right? They'll say that Stalin is our God, whatever. They'll do anything. Of course there are. You have free will. You always have free will. But what it's talking about is human beings. The sign of a human being is that he's willing to devote himself totally to a principle, to an idea that doesn't benefit him. It doesn't mean that it's always right or wrong. There's all the other religions are also, they're willing to die for their sake, right? The Romans burned the Christians at the stake because they didn't want to leave. There's also, doesn't necessarily mean it's true, but it does mean that it's a human sign of a human being. But this is hergish in the soul, that they believe in God, but they don't really feel it. That's what's called a behemoth. That's these people that give their lives. It's one little second, a flick, right? That they give their lives. And a lot of times in these other religions, they say, listen, I'm going to die anyway. So, I'll go to heaven, and believe it's an investment. It's an investment. Like you invest your money, you throw it away. You don't know if you're going to get it back. So I'll throw my life away. I'll get a bigger type of a life. But Jews, through the generations, are willing to, even non-religious Jews, they don't believe in heaven. They don't believe in anything. And they're willing to give their lives for Judaism, for God, right? Instead of bowing down to the idol, bowing down to the cross or whatever, they're willing to give their lives. But that's only for a second is revealed. This man inside of them. There are Jews that every instant of their lives is totally devoted to the Creator. Those are called Zera Adam, the seed of man. And the seed of animal are people that they feel themselves normal, naturally people. They're called seed of animal. An animal can see, an animal can hear. But what? It hasn't got any connection to anything bigger than itself. So it is these souls, they have no awareness of God. They have no feeling. That's the point. Feeling of God. That means feeling. When your mind is attached and set in the reality is your soul, as though you feel tidat milashan adam yada, because the language of knowing God is the expression of like man knew his wife. Shu bechinas itkashus is an attachment, vitchabrut, and a joining. And similarly, you can also say mibasari echazeh elokai. It says, from my flesh I can grasp what God is. What does it mean from my flesh? As just like I feel my flesh, so there's tzaddikim that can feel God, as though you see. Even though you cannot really see God with your physical eye, but nevertheless, it's like a person that he knows and he feels in his soul that inside of him, you know that you're alive. How do you know you're alive? You don't see your soul. You maybe see the results of it. How do you know you're not a machine? How do you know? You feel. It's a thing that you feel. He doesn't know what his soul is. People don't know what it is, but you don't know what it is, but you know that it is. You feel it. That's how these tzaddikim feel God. It is felt that a person, just like a person feels himself, that his self exists, a person sees that he's alive, and he sees that his body is alive from his soul. And when he goes to sleep, his soul goes away, the life goes away. And when you wake up, all of a sudden, life comes back to you. Torah Ohr, so you know that it's me. So it is, there are tzaddikim. And tzaddikim, they feel the truth. There are certain souls, they're called the souls of Atzilut, like it says, like Job said, from my flesh, I know that God exists. Not from my flesh, I know that I exist. Shagam delayed machshava tafisa, even though there is no thought that can grasp God at all. But mehuto eno musa, you can't understand it. But mitziuta, the fact that God does exist, that you can feel. No one knows what God is, but there are certain people that know, feel, are certain that God is. That's called yediyot hametziut. So this is what Moses wanted that everyone should feel, me and you. That's the whole purpose of Chassidut also. That's the purpose of Mashiach. So the idea is now we think that God is some sort of a spiritual thing, something you have to believe in. And a lot of people don't believe in it, but I do believe in. But the fact of the matter is that God is creating everyone. It should be the most obvious thing in the world that you're being created by God, and you're being created by God for a purpose. That should be a certain obvious reality. And in fact, all the troubles in the world, the problems and human problems, are because people just don't feel what reality is. They're not connected to God, so they get all with neuroses and psychosis and paranoia and depression and aggression and addictions and all these things come because people feel that they're alone. They don't feel that they're being created or that there's any purpose. So that's what it means that Moses feeds the animals. Natati esev b'sarecha. That he makes the animal, the people who are like animals that don't feel God, they just feel themselves, that they should start being men, seed of man, and really feel the Creator. The fact of the matter is that we can see that the worlds are like a big body, and they are alive and they exist. The worlds, the sun, the moon, it's like a big, huge living organism. Hare Chayus, this life force which is in the world is from Ein Sof Baruch Hu. All of the animals, all the birds, all the bugs, it all comes from God. Hashofea, God gives them life. B'chol reg, every moment. Paskala Zu, this can be understood by everybody. That we can see that things don't live on their own. So it's possible that we could turn our attention and say, hey, listen, maybe everything is coming from God. But when a person in his soul is attached to this, that this person's soul feels itself that it's being created by the creator of the universe every instant, then God stops being a biblical figure. God suddenly becomes an intimate reality that he's creating me. That's seed of man. It's as though you see godliness with your eyes. This is called da'at. This is called knowledge. I know God doesn't mean that you know God intellectually. That's why he brings the example that it says that man knew his wife and she gave birth. He knew his wife means he had marital relations with her, but it means that they're connected. And it's a connection that gives birth. So also God becomes real. That's what it says. Who is a wise person? One who sees the source of everything. Like he sees with his eye. That everything is being created from nothing. And this it says, it says, on them God should appear. Which is not the case if your mind and your understanding does not grasp God from nearby, kiruv, you don't feel it, it's just an intellectual topic. That's called zerabema, that's called the seed of animal. Even though that a person has mind and understanding and the greatness of God, the Gam call Yisrael and all the Jewish people, they believe in God. And this faith is above, in some ways, above understanding, above feeling. But nevertheless, okay, so what are we saying? There are big tzaddikim that they feel God. They feel God all the time. But not necessarily will they give their lives for God. There's Jewish people that don't feel anything. They don't have any feeling, but they believe in God. And this belief can cancel out their whole entire personality. That belief, that's what makes people die at the stake, whatever they do. Rather than bow down to an idol. Nevertheless, the faith is called an atar. It's just a surrounding level. It surrounds them, and it has to be also in a way of dat. So in other words, every Jew believes in God. Every Jew. I think I once told you this story, but I'll tell it again. Someone wrote to me, I think in YouTube, because I put these classes up on YouTube, so people make comments. I think that's why I saw it there. Anyway, so someone was putting up posts, maybe it was in Facebook, putting up posts, a Jewish person against the religion, against Judaism, against religious Judaism, one of these woke people, who knows what, against Judaism, and for the Hamas, and we're a murderous nation, we're conquering. Anyway, so this girl wrote, she says, maybe you'll say that I'm a self-hating Jew. Maybe you'll say that I'm a self-hating Jew. So I wrote to her and I said, that's totally not so. In many ways, you believe in God more than me. And I said, what's the proof? If I would write to you and say, well, maybe you're not Jewish, right? How would you react? Who are you to tell me what I'm Jewish? Who are you to say that I'm Jewish? You're more Jewish than me, right? So you see, it burns a fire inside of you. If someone comes to me and says that I'm not Jewish, so I'll say, okay, say whatever you want to. You want to say I'm not Jewish? That's what you think. And the insinuation that I'm not Jewish doesn't light a fire inside of me, right? I'm going to fight for my Judaism, right? And who knows what I would do if I was really put in a situation that I would have to fight for my Judaism. Would I do it or not? I don't know. I mean, I hope I would, but I'm not. But this girl, as soon as I said to her, maybe she's not Jewish, all of a sudden, So we see that every Jew down deep does believe that they're Jewish. Believe it. And they believe in God down deep. But it doesn't have any effect on their day-to-day life. Because what they feel in their day-to-day life is themselves. And a normal person feels himself. So says the Rebbe, that's the whole purpose of Moses. Moses wants to bring this certainty that you're a Jew, and that it's very important to these people that are Jews to bring this into reality. And the feeling that I'm a Jew means that you feel that God exists. That's what it feels. But it's not translated into those terms. I think I told you the story, and I'll tell it again. I just heard this very recently, that there was Chabad wanted to get into the prisons, I think in California, and he had to speak to some chaplain, some general, in order to get in. And the general was, obviously not a Jew, whatever. And the general asked, how do you know who's a Jew? And he said, well, whoever's mother is a Jew. So the general said, well, so my mother is a Jew. She told me that her mother was a Jew. So he said, you're also a Jew. I'm a Jew. He said, yeah, your mother is Jewish, you're Jewish. So this general said, I don't know what that means, So he said, here, put on tefillin. It's a commandment. First time in your life. And he never saw tefillin. He never put on tefillin. He never saw a Jew put on tefillin. He didn't even think he was Jewish. And he put it, I heard the story not directly from the person who heard it, but saw it. And he put on tefillin, this general put on tefillin, and he started to cry. He said Shema Yisrael, he started to cry. He said, what's going on? Why am I crying? Did you put something into these tefillin? What did you do? He doesn't even know what tefillin are. He knows it's a commandment. So he said, listen, you're a Jew. Why are you a Jew? Because God made you a Jew. Why are you putting on tefillin? Because God made the tefillin. The tefillin woke up the Jewishness inside of you. Two godly things that you never were connected to before. You never knew it even existed. Those are tears of joy. It's the same. That's what Moses wants. That's called dat. It means a feeling, a certainty. Like it says, da et Elokei avicha. You should know the God of your fathers. Ki al yadei, by means of dat, by means of feeling. Dat means feeling. By means of feeling God, by means of this, Eino olam mastir, the world does not conceal godliness. The world becomes transparent. You realize the world is just a creation. Reality is a creation. It's being created by God, who is infinite, the creator of all existence. Of all. That's what Moses wants. He wants everyone to feel God. And when everyone feels God, it means there's love of God. When you feel God, you feel how good God is. He's creating me from nothing. You feel that. That comes from this feeling. That comes from the, sorry, loving God comes from the feeling. And clearly seeing that there's no comparison to God. Like this general that I just talked about. The Keniyir, and also fear of God. When you feel the reality of God, then you have a fear of God, a healthy fear of God. Just like naturally when you're driving, you don't drive on the wrong side of the street. It's natural. You want to do what's good, right? You don't want to do what's bad. The same thing is naturally you want to do what's good, what God wants you to do, and naturally you avoid what's bad, what God says. That's called fear of God. That's what Moses wants to implant everyone. He wants to feed the godly soul so that it becomes more healthy and more aware, more sensitive of what reality really is. That's the job of Moses. And that'll also be the job of Mashiach, but we'll get to that in the end, God willing, tomorrow.